I will be narrating a personal story that I wrote, of the genre horror and mystery combined. So sit back, relax, and listen. The Apple. I woke up on Sunday morning. 7:14 a.m. read the clock, feeling most refreshed from the rejuvenation of quality sleep, which I so often fail to obtain. The day was stunning. The sun was out, beaming its glorious illuminating rays past the window, caressing themselves on my skin. I had planned yesterday, if the weather permitted and my body strong, that I would go for a hike. It had been several months since I was able to pull myself away from work to even entertain a day off in nature. An hour later, having completed my usual routine of showering at a near scalding temperature, followed by piping hot coffee down my guzzle, I set for the back door. My home was nested at the midpoint on a hill, in the shadow of a mountain kilometers away, but within walking distance. Many hiking trails were available to use at my pleasure. It was nothing less than sinful that I did not capitalize more frequently on this opportunity. Nevertheless, today I would again. My legs swayed back and forth, carrying my body to the nearest trail from my house. I couldn't see a single cloud in the sky. Only visible was a seemingly infinite scattered blue ceiling. I was feeling good. The cool late spring air filling my lungs with each breath, invigorating my muscles and mind to press on harder and further than I have before. I saw the hiking sign 10 feet away, indicating several available trails. The one heading north read, Summit Peak, 6.2 miles. With elevation, that trail might take me 2 hours to hike, one way. I had my small, manageable backpack holstered snugly on my shoulders. Contained within were an assortment of granola bars and water bottles. Such a trail would not prove dangerous or out of reach of the parameters of available supplies. It's decided. Let's do it, I thought to myself. Prior hiking trails were always done on shorter paths, maybe 2 miles at the lengthiest stretch. It's always said the first step is the hardest, but I took mine with glee and excitement. 30 minutes into the hike, I'm nearing the edge of this winding path, which takes a hard right turn. Visibility beyond was blocked by dense brush, trees, and their canopy. Following the beaten path, knowledge of this gave me great comfort. I'm barely sweating or breathing heavily, still through my nose is sufficient. Elevation with each step is moderate. Birds are chirping, their harmonious echoes filling me with happiness. I make the hard turn following the path, and see in the distance perhaps the most breathtaking tree I've ever witnessed in my life. What is this? It looked like a cross between a willow tree and a mahogany. It had deep ridges between its dark brown bark, with long ascending branches on all sides. It was in a small clearing, a few feet ahead of the turn. It was out of place. I advanced, feeling inexplicably a little uneasy at the sight of such a wondrous marvel of nature. I was touching the bark, running my hand slowly across the ridges. What was I feeling at this moment? Can I describe it? It's just a tree after all. An immaculate tree, true, but just a tree. I examined its branches and roots, bending down slightly. In this time, I realized my stomach was starting to protest. I needed to eat. Fair enough. It's been almost 3 hours since I woke up. I sat down, nestled up against the protecting strength of the bark, opened my bag and went for a granola bar. Who am I kidding? I got 2. As I ripped the packaging off one bar, a red glint caught the periphery of my left eye. I thought. I shifted my head towards this peculiar intrusion into my psyche. My eyes shuffled over yet another bizarre aberration of nature. A simple, yet perfect apple. The reddest apple I've ever seen. Why was this so unwelcome to me? I thought to myself. Why did my heart rate burst these extra beats at the sight of a fruit? For one thing, where did it come from? There are no wild apple trees in this state. Perhaps a previous hiker discarded it, I said to myself. Which, at the sound of my own words, didn't quite mesh with logic. This apple was practically staring at me, begging, pleading to be eaten. Its vibrant skin equal to a desperate plea of consumption. Would I not oblige it? My stomach concurred with the thought. I reached over, grasping the moderate-sized apple in my hand, and pulling it to my face, faster than it seemed reasonable. Was I already biting into it? My brain had yet to process the decision it had evidently made for me. The flavor was otherworldly. Very sweet, without overwhelming my senses. Juicy, overflowing with liquid delight. My senses were elevated to a point that can't be worded. Here I am on a Sunday morning, eating a random apple found on a hike, on top of the figurative world. On the other hand, why did I feel cold? A few minutes pass. My mind had drifted off into its own construct, eyes closed securely. I was still sitting down, head pressed back against the unwavering bark. The flawless apple lay bare to its core on my side, its delicious flesh now digesting within. I was still cold, colder than I had been 10 minutes ago. When I got out of bed earlier, the sky was too beautiful to bother informing myself of the day's weather forecast. My mind was reminding me of this fact, perhaps as a subtle jab of personal incompetence. This is too frigid. I was only wearing a light sweatshirt and cargo pants. I should head back. Opening my eyes, my heart stopped. It was almost dark, the sun barely penetrating through the thick layer of clouds above. Clouds? There wasn't a speck in the sky earlier. Had I fallen asleep so long? I took out my phone and checked the time. It read 10:27 a.m. I had napped for no more than 20 minutes. Is this sudden extreme cloud formation even possible? Staring blankly above, clearly it was. Yet this was too disturbing for me. I jolted upwards, swung my sack around my shoulder, and set back along the trail I had come. The path had turned sharply to my right when I was walking prior to my little nap at the base of the tree. The turn was not far from the napping location. Walking back, however, I couldn't find it. The trail kept going straight. I spun around, confirming I was traveling in the proper direction to head back to the start of the trail. I was, no doubt. I never went around the other side of the tree. I couldn't get lost like this. It didn't make any sense. Was I going crazy? As these thoughts whirled in my brain, a tiny snowflake landed on my nose. The rumbling of hunger was replaced by a seed of panic in the pit of my stomach. It's snowing now? It couldn't have been less than 58 degrees or 15 Celsius when I set out earlier this morning. How could the temperature plummet to below freezing this fast? The air was calm and completely still. Snowflakes were falling in nearly straight lines. I could see my breath with every exhalation, the frequency of which was rapidly increasing as unease morphed into genuine fright. I have to get home, now. This isn't normal. But what path do I take? The one that shifted per my memory, or the one I know is going in the direction I was traveling prior to my nap on the other side of the clearing and tree? The first move was to quickly check that the other path did not have any sharp turns, to confirm I was not mad. It had no turns. It went on in a straight, although upwardly vertical line. I set back along the path I had traveled to get here, in that straight line that I know is wrong. What choice do I have? What choice do I have? I'll get lost if I venture off path. Walking, Almost jogging, I make my way down. In my sense of direction, this still doesn't feel right. I'm going west, per my compass, when I should be traveling south. After a few minutes of travel, I had to decide, do I break off the path and follow the proper cardinal point, or continue following the path and hope it swivels back in the direction it should already be carved out in? Before I could make a choice, my eyes glimpsed a presence in the distance, a shadow, tracking it as I moved up the path towards me. At this point, visibility was low due to heavy snowfall and thick cloud cover. It was almost 11 a.m., but felt like a 7 p.m. evening. The figure, indistinguishable in features due to distance, was not moving fast. Due to size, he was clearly a man, taking one lumbering step after the next. On one end, seeing another human splashed a wave of relief over me. On the other, even from this distance, I could tell this man was intimidating. I wouldn't be prejudiced though. In fact, to the reverse. Often the largest people are the least violent. Gentle giants, yes? I proceed down the path towards him. When we're within 50 feet of one another, I call out confidently, "Wild weather shift, isn't it?" No response. He continues moving forward. This was strange, but I continue walking forward as well. Maybe he's listening to music. As we get near each other, his facial features become clear. He looks like a normal, though large man, with a long groomed beard. No earbuds, however. Again, I speak to him and say, "Hey, sorry to bother you. Can you confirm this path leads back to the southern entrance point?" He says nothing. Continues on forward. Our shoulders brush past each other. Or they should have. It must be a trick of my mind. I felt nothing. There was no bump, no contact of matter. My shoulder glided wisp-like through his. I didn't believe that just happened. I didn't dare do anything for a few minutes, as I watched the man continue hiking up, out of sight. I could have tried to touch him again, but I can't move. My heart turned to cold ice. What is happening? Did I die? Am I a ghost? If I'm dead, why is my heart beating so powerfully against my chest? Is it in defiance of the truth of my fate? This isn't happening. It's so cold. My head is pounding, spiking with pain. I feel sick. I leaned against the nearest tree, trying to catch frozen breaths of air. But it was no use. I vomited whatever remnants of the apple were still in my system, along with other fluids. My head felt better, but lighter. I couldn't control my body. I wasn't conscious anymore. I awoke suddenly. Beads of sweat were running down my back. Taking in my surroundings, I was in a hospital bed, IV in place. Saline marked on the bag. A nurse was beside me, checking on the IV line. She looked at me half surprised, half pleased I had awoken. "You're awake?" she said. "Incredible. You were in a coma for 2 weeks," she also added. Stunned, I was processing the last fragmented memories I have. I remember the descent from my hike. I remember the apple, the vomit, the ethereal glide-through of shoulders. I quickly asked the nurse, "What happened? Did someone find me on the hiking trail?" She looked confused and said, "No, dear, you were found in your bed, at home, when you didn't come into work for 2 days." Finding this hard to believe, all of that was a dream? A fiction of my conscious trying to parse through the immovable reality of my physical condition? I was trapped in my brain? This did make sense, but there was a flaw in the story. Why did I still feel so cold? This concludes the end of the first story. if you're having a pleasant experience, be sure to subscribe and like the video. It'll help me to grow and reach a larger audience. Thank you.